Okay, getting everything ready and set up. Wanting to check everything out, make sure it's working. I always have to check DLive. It's one of those tricky websites. So let me make sure that it's up and running. Looks like it's run. Audio sounds good. Need to go to the right channel on the strange or the wonderful world of weirdness. Make sure it's going. A couple of times I accidentally did the live stream on the same or on the wrong channel on YouTube. So for everybody on the wonderful world of weirdness, I apologize. It sounds good on YouTube, but I still need to go and make sure that it's in the right playlist. Okay, sounds good there. I'm going to have everything up and running here in a minute. Rumble's usually the last one to actually be ready to go. So let me see here. And what I'm oh, it's actually going. That's it. It's actually running. So Rumble is up and ready to go. And let me see here. I'm gonna go check Kick out and Twitch too. So I can see for sure if they're running. Let me see here. So today's going to be an episode of The Cut. And this week I will have better streams for The Cut and for Weird Science. Last week didn't go over too well, and I apologize for that, but I'll make up for it this week. Well, the cut wasn't really all that bad, but it could have been better. I completely dropped the ball when it comes to Weird Science, though, so I apologize about that. Let me see what the audio sounds like. Yeah, it sounds good on Kick. Now, Twitch is the one I need to check too. Not that I really need to. I'm kind of thinking about ditching Twitch, to be honest with you, because like I get these views, but that's about it, you know. I've had freaking this account for I don't know how many years now, and it doesn't seem to really pay off very much when it comes to having it. So yeah, it sounds good on Twitch as well. I'm going to do something real quick. I have to take care of a problem. I keep getting bots on my videos that want me to like buy into their viewership, pay for them to give me fake views and stuff like that. So I have to constantly go in and delete them. So I'm going to do that real quick. Now I've done all my sound tests and everything, and what I'm going to do is put some music on until the top of the hour, and I will let you guys listen to that. And when that is done, I will be right back to start the show. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy this. This is from Mr. Robot, aka Illuminati, on Rumble. You can find his channel at Hacker Radio on rumble.com. And here you go. Here's 16 minutes and 36 seconds of music for you to enjoy. I hope you enjoy.
Awakening from an epic dream, awakening from the long dark night. Awakening from history, awakening from the reality. The liberation of the human soul to consciousness of the one and all. The activation of the sacred plan, the birthing of a new man, a new man. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Awakening to new perceptions, awakening to the joy of life. Awakening to a new dimension, awakening to a paradise. The illusion of separation disappearing to unity, into the source of a high vibration, into the wonder of the mystery, a mystery. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if
Once the gods carved earth like a cosmic chessboard, Poseidon claimed Atlantis, his star-born accord. 10 twin suns, throne of tridents waves at his command. Empire stretched from Big stones to Mayan sand. Monoliths stacked like Legos blocks no crane could lift. Sonic levitation, gods don't need pulleys or grit. Athena taught Athens, Hephaestus forged veins of gold, but Atlantis spires pierced heaven, stories untold. Ages of virtue, divine blood pure in the veins. No egregious geodesic temples where starlight reigns, but mortality crept in, diluted the grace. Gold turned to rust, hubris eclipsed the god fast.
Of Atlantis, drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom, where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tijuana, the cold section all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of laws and princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walked the sea.
Watched the fall, saw vice crack the divine. Pyramids hummed warnings, but they ignored the signs. Sky split with fury, tsunami swallowed their pride. Atlantis sang screaming, but blueprints survive. Baalbek's foundation, stones that defy modern math. 1,000-ton puzzle, gravity's aftermath. Scholars still baffled how they align the stars. They rode cosmic currents, breaching space-time's bars. Now divers chase shadows where crystal cities gleamed. AI scans the ocean, but truth a half-dream. Dream Freemasons whisper maps in their lodges of lore. Plato's Critias, a metaphor or a war.
Echoes of Atlantis, drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom, where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tijuana, the cold tension all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of law, 10 princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea.
They say Poseidon's seed still flows in our veins. In every megalith, every grid that restrains. The Dogon chart Sirius, temples guard the flame. But Atlantis tech, it's encoded in our DNA's frame. Zeus's verdict was fire, a flood and ice. Yet the Sphinx still stares, whispering sacrifice. Mortal minds crave power, but miss the design. True kings rule through resonance, not bloodline. Now decode the ruins, their psalms etched in stone. A star-born king's empire, now dust and bone. The hall of records buried neath Giza's cold gaze holds anti-gravity schematics from pre-flood days. Crystal engines hummed, organ fueled their might, till pride turned their frequencies dissonant blight. The Anunnaki fled, Mars colonies crumbled. Leviathan's bones and the Mariana rumbled. But Poseidon's ghost rides the Bermuda's mist. Evolve past the greed or drown in the abyss. Tsunamis taller than gods, crack continents like eggs. Jungles of Egypt drowned, turned to sand in Poseidon's regret. Mammoths shrunk to lapdogs, skies choked by volcanic breath. Waves circled the globe thrice, 3 funerals for death. Up the piston, rode the arc of frequencies, not wood. Up tetrahedron ziggurat where anti-grav pulses stood. While Atlantis sank, he spliced DNA and quantum seeds, stashed them in Göbekley's veins and Indus Valley reeds. Volcanic winter's curse, Zeus hit the reset, scorched the grids, erased the moon-ringed internet. Noah's not a shepherd, he's a star-born archivist, cracking hermetic scrolls in caves where mushrooms twist. The survivors crawl from mud with amnesiac eyes, built new gods from scrap metal and fallen skies. Now desert bones whisper where cedars once soared. Man's just a ghost in Atlantis' holographic horde. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's new. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's you. Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep, the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tijuana, their codes etched in awe. As above, so below, cosmic empire of law. 10 princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea. see. So when you see Stonehenge, Angkor spire, know Atlantis lives in the quantum choir. The gods were myths, their mentors in code. Rise from the ashes, or repeat what they owe. They built the pyramids in 20 years, a block every 2 minutes. Hieroglyphs scream their pride, but not a how and what's written. Modern science scratches heads, these structures can't be mimicked. Copper tools, now scholars tripping, logic thinly stretched and twisted. Ran an obelisk, 1,000 tons dragged across the sand. Today's cranes can't lift a fifth, what force moved them by hand? Call the ancients primitive, yo, that's pure delusion. Physicists today need miracles to crack their fusion. The high priest of Kemet mapped the stars with precision, while modern minds stay chained to 3D prison. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden with an allegorical crypt. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge cloaked in simple living secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code. Key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, how came a pyramid ode? The Sphinx wears water scars, a flood from ancient skies. Explosives crack the pyramids, no tombs, just hollow lies. Money stolen? Nah, that's ego talk, a weak hypothesis. Truths buried in the stars, encrypted in the myths. Sacred geometry, pagan songs, the roots of Christendom. Pythagoras knelt at their feet, Jesus learned the kingdom. Temples mirror Orion, Aztecs trace the same glow. Megalithic GPS, what's buried below? They split the lotus stem, hid wisdom at the core. Solomon's temple, just a copy of what came before. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden wisdom, allegorical crypts. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge cloaked in simple living secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code. Key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, alchemy pyramid ode. Iron to gold, alchemy's flame, they mastered the unseen. Telekinetic levitation, Mars dust in their genes. Critics laugh, aliens but the proof's in the plasma. Why is the Dogon tribe no serious? Was a binary drama? Myths and metaphors, the truth's too bright to hold. Scattered in ruins worldwide, a map etched in gold. They call themselves Necheru, gods with cosmic ships. Gifted fire, math and law, then dipped beyond the eclipse. Now academia's gatekeepers mock what they can't measure. But the scales of Ma'at weigh soul, not tech or treasure. The Zet Tepe dawned when gods walked as king. Left blueprints in Gobekli Tepe and the Nazca line. The Emerald Tablet's truth burns through the scholar's denial. We're echoes of starlight reclaiming our trial.
When you stare at the sky, feel the ache in your chest. That's ancestral memory. We're all cosmic guests. The pyramids home a hymn, rising call the divine. As above, so below, till the world's realigned.
Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, the truth's a spiral, eternity script. Written in a language of symbolism, we're the gods we've been missing.
Okay, we are back, and this is where I get on with the stories. Now, before I do, I'd like to mention that that was brought to you by Mr. Robot, aka Illuminati. You can find his channel on Rumble as Hacker Radio. So if you guys enjoyed what you heard, check him out. Give him a thumbs up, whatever, like, subscribe, share. You know, leave a comment for him and let him know how much you like his music. Listen to some of the other music that he has available as well. So, thank you, Mr. Robot, for allowing me to use your content. Greatly appreciated. Now, this week he was supposed to show up and kind of give us a little breakdown on what he came up with when it came to uh, the naming of America, but he has gone silent for what I can tell as being at least 9, 10 days. Knowing Mr. Robot, he probably went to a sabbatical out in the deserts of unknown origins or locations where he smoked excessive amounts of drugs and maybe played around with the DMT a little bit and had lost his way. You never can tell with Mr. Robot. He's probably stranded somewhere in his underwear. So if you guys see some crazy dude in his underwear running stark naked through the desert, please help him out. Now, I do have a comment on YouTube from Bleezy G, and she says, or he, one of the two, says, "You think hackers could hack the Optimus robots?" Well, sure they can. I also think that hackers can hack a pizza pie or, you know, anything. I think the word hacker has been really changed, according to what I've heard from my buddy Mark Edworthy. You know what I mean? I think that the word hacker has been really misused a lot in recent years. So, sure, I'll go along with that. I think that hackers could hack the Optimus robots. So, with that being said, thank you, Bleezy G, for commenting. We do appreciate that. It's very few and far between that we get people who actually say something on the stream, so it's really appreciated. But don't worry about the whole thing about Mr. Robot not being here because I have got backup. That means I actually have information for the cut that I can go ahead and read, and then maybe later on we can have Mr. Robot come in here and kind of give us a breakdown on the naming, how the naming of America came about being. So he might be upset with me too because we had a pretty good conversation about remote viewing, and he's really spiritual when it comes to remote viewers. So we get like that on some of our episodes other than on the wonderful world of weirdness. We get down and dirty about some stuff sometimes. Um, no harm intended. It's just the way we roll, me, him, and Mr. Edworthy. So that being said, let me go ahead and get started with the topics that are scheduled to be said. So, first of all, let me get started with this one. Hi, Brazil. Sometimes simply called Brazil in ancient texts and maps. Now, this is a fascinating subject that's steeped in mythology, folklore, and maritime legend. It is often described as a phantom island that appears and disappears off the west coast of Ireland. Stories about this mysterious land have been passed down for centuries, blending history, cartography, and mystic traditions into the enigmatic into one enigmatic narrative. Exploring the origins, descriptions, cultural significance, and enduring mystery of High Brazil reveals much about human imagination and the nature of myth making in the context of exploration in the unknown. The earliest reference to High Brazil date back to medieval times, when it first began to appear on maps and sailors' logs. Unlike ordinary islands, High Brazil was said to be visible only at certain times, often enveloped in a heavy mist or shrouded in fog. It was sometimes seen as a dark silhouette or a faint outline on the horizon, teasing sailors with its presence but remaining elusive and unreachable. This phenomenon gave rise to the idea that High Brazil was not an ordinary island, but rather a mystical or supernatural realm existing on the edge of the known world. The name Brazil, associated with this island, is unrelated to the modern nation of Brazil in South America. Instead, it is thought to derive from the Irish language or Celtic roots. Some scholars suggest the name may come from the Gaelic phrase "High Brazel," which is High Brazel, Hybreasail, or Oi Brazil, Uibreasail, meaning the land of the fortunate or the blessed island. This reflects the island's reputation as a place of prosperity, abundance, or spiritual significance in the mythology of the people who lived along the coast of Ireland and Britain. The folklore surrounding High Brazil often paints it as a place of great wonder and mystery. In some legends, it is described as a paradisiacal island inhabited by an advanced or enlightened people, sometimes possessing ancient wisdom or magical knowledge. These inhabitants were believed to live in harmony with nature, possessing technology or spiritual abilities far beyond that of ordinary humans. This notion made High Brazil a kind of Celtic Eden, a utopian refuge removed from the troubles of the world. One common motif in stories about High Brazil is the island's cyclical visibility. It is said to appear once every 7 years, or, on other rare occasions, only to vanish again beneath the waves or behind an impenetrable mist. This periodic appearance reinforced the idea that the island was not bound by ordinary laws of time and space, aligning it with other Celtic and European myths of enhanced islands or otherworldly realms that exist in a liminal space between the physical and spiritual world. Cartographers of the medieval and Renaissance periods were intrigued by reports of High Brazil, and many included it on their maps. Early maps sometimes show the island as a large circular landmass with a river or a split running through its center. This cartographic representation contributed to the island's mystique and gave it a semblance of reality in the minds of explorers and scholars. It became a landmark of sorts, symbolizing the edge of the known world, a boundary between the familiar and the unknown. Sailors' accounts further fueled the legend. Numerous seafarers reported sighting the island, but often failed to reach it due to bad weather, fog, or inexplicable navigational difficulties. These stories were passed along with a sense of awe and wonder, further embedding High Brazil in the folklore of Atlantic maritime culture. In some accounts, those who ventured too far to the island were said to disappear or encounter strange phenomena, enhancing the island's reputation as a place of supernatural power. The concept of phantom island or islands, like High Brazil, is not unique to Irish lore. Across many centuries, tales of elusive islands that appear and disappear or exist in hidden realms are common. These islands often serve symbolic functions, representing hopes, fears, or metaphysical ideas. High Brazil fits into this larger pattern, acting as a symbol of the human quest for knowledge and the fascination with places just beyond reach. High Brazil has also been associated with esoteric and mystical traditions. Some modern interpretations link the island with secret societies, hidden knowledge, and mystical geography. It is sometimes compared to other legendary places such as Avalon or the Isle of the Blessed, which are known in Celtic and Arthurian mythology as realms of magic and eternal life. These connections, though speculative, highlight how deeply embedded High Brazil is in the Western mythic imagination. Despite centuries of searching, no physical evidence of High Brazil's existence has ever been found. By the 18th century, advances in navigation and mapping revealed that the island was likely a myth or a misinterpretation of a natural phenomenon, such as fog banks, mirages, or undiscovered smaller islands. Its place gradually faded from maps, though the legend persisted in folklore and literature. The enduring fascination with High Brazil lies not just in the question of whether it was real, but in what it represents. The island embodies the human love for mystery and the allure of the unknown. It stands as a reminder of a time when the world was larger and more mysterious, when the boundaries between reality and myth were blurred, and when the sea held countless secrets waiting to be discovered. In literature and popular culture, High Brazil has inspired stories, poems, and artistic works that explore themes of mystery, discovery, and enchantment. Its image as a hidden paradise or gateway to another world continues to captivate the imagination. Writers have used the island as a setting for tales of adventure, magic, and the supernatural, weaving it into the tapestry of mythic places that define human storytelling. Moreover, the story of High Brazil intersects with historical themes such as exploration, cartography, and the expanse of human knowledge. It illustrates how early explorers and mapmakers grappled with uncertain information and how legends could shape perceptions of geography. In this way, High Brazil is part of the broader history of human interaction with the sea and the unknown. The island's mystical qualities also invite reflection on the nature of belief and the power of myth. High Brazil's ability to inspire belief in its existence, despite the lack of evidence, speaks to the role of storytelling in shaping human experiences. Myths, like High Brazil, function as more than simple tales. As simple tales, they are vessels for cultural values, spiritual yearning, and collective hopes. Some researchers have explored possible natural explanations for sightings of High Brazil. Atmospheric phenomena such as fata morgana mirages, where distant land masses or icebergs are distorted by layers of air at different temperatures, may have contributed to reports of a phantom island. Additionally, the presence of real islands or skulls in the Atlantic, occasionally hidden by fog or mist, might have given rise to sightings mistakenly identified as High Brazil. The island's connection to Celtic tradition adds another layer to its significance. The Celtic cosmology the Celtic cosmology no, in Celtic cosmology, islands often represent gateways to other worlds, or places where the veil between life and the supernatural is thin. The cyclical appearance of High Brazil aligns with these themes, suggesting a liminal space that connects the material world with realms of magic and mystery. High Brazil's mythic status can also be compared to other legendary places like Atlantis or El Dorado, which symbolizes lost knowledge, paradise, and the search for a better world. Unlike these other myths, High Brazil's geographical location is clearly defined in relation to Ireland, grounding it to a particular culture or historical context. Throughout history, High Brazil has been referred or referenced in various texts, ranging from medieval chronicles to maritime logs and later literary works. Its presence in early printed maps, such as those by the Venetian cartographer Andrea Bianco and others, underscore its importance in the worldview of medieval Europe. The island represented the edges of human understanding, a place where exploration met the limits of knowledge. The idea that High Brazil might have been inhabited by a secretive or enlightened people resonates with themes found in esoteric and mystical traditions. These ideas suggest that hidden wisdom or spiritual truth exists beyond the reach of ordinary humans, accessible only to the initiated or those who dare to journey beyond the veil. This notion parallels stories of hidden sages or mystical islands in many cultures, reflecting universal human themes. In modern times, High Brazil has become a subject of fascination for paranormal enthusiasts, occultists, and seekers of hidden histories. While mainstream scholarship views the island as myth or legend, its symbolic power endures. It continues to be explored in contexts ranging from speculative fiction to studies of folklore and myth. The Great Stink of London was a defining moment in the history of urban sanitation, a catastrophic event that brought an entire city to the edge of collapse through the sheer force of its own waste. It unfolded during a sweltering summer in the middle of the 19th century, when the River Thames, the lifeblood and artery of the British capital, became so saturated with human and industrial excrement that the very air of the city turned toxic. What had been simmering quietly for decades beneath the surface of polite society suddenly erupted into a crisis that could no longer be ignored. It was the breaking point of a centuries long neglect of public health, a moment when the old ways of managing waste were overwhelmed by the demands of a growing industrial metropolis. The Great Stink, as it came to be called, forced the ruling classes to confront the filth they had allowed to accumulate and led to the birth of modern sanitation in London. London in the early part of the 19th century was already choking on the burden of its own success. The city had grown to become the largest urban center in the world, a pulsating heart of commerce, politics, and empire. Its population had exploded as people poured in from the countryside and across the empire in search of opportunity. But while the buildings, factories, and docks multiplied, the city's infrastructure remained largely medieval. Most households, most households relied on cesspools, privies, and chamber pots, with no centralized system for removing waste. What could not be carted away by hand was dumped directly into the streets or into the Thames. As the population grew, so too did the filth. By the 1840s, London's once proud river had transformed into an open sewer. The water that many still used for washing and drinking teemed with bacteria, decomposing matter, and chemicals. Disease flourished in this cesspit, with repeated outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, and dysentery that claimed tens of thousands of lives. Yet, despite the mounting toll, action was slow to come. Many in authority still clung to the Masama theory. Many in authority still clung to the miasma theory, the belief that disease was caused by foul odors rather than by contaminated water. Rather than addressing the pollution itself, they attempted to cover it with perfumes, vinegar, and lime. The introduction of the flush toilet only made matters worse. Though a marvel of convenience for the upper and middle classes, these devices discharged enormous quantities of waste directly into the already overloaded cesspits and sewers. When these systems could not cope, the content overflowed into the Thames. In a tragic irony, public health reforms intended to eliminate disease by banning cesspools only hastened the river's transformation into a vast drain. With each passing year, the Thames grew more toxic. The tipping point came during an especially hot summer. The sun bore down relentlessly, and the shallow, sluggish water of the Thames began to bake. The stench that rose from the river was like something out of a nightmare. Fish floated belly up in the oily water. The water was thick with a nauseating vapor that clung to every building and crept through every open window. The smell was so overpowering that sheets soaked in carbolic acid were hung from the windows of government buildings in a desperate attempt to block the fumes. Even this proved useless. Members of Parliament, whose chambers stood just above the river, were driven to gagging and tears as they attempted to conduct business. One by one, they fled the chamber. Newspapers documented the horror with gory detail, calling it the Great Stink. Writers likened the river to a corpse laid out in the sun. Public rage and fear reached a fever pitch. At last, political leaders could no longer look away. What cholera could not achieve, the stench finally did. Emergency funds were released, and the government turned to a civil engineer whose work had long been overlooked. Joseph Bazalgette had been warned for years that London needed a modern sewer system. Now, at last, he was given the authority to build it. Bazalgette's plan was massive in scale and visionary in scope. He hoped a system of intercepting sewers that would run parallel to the Thames, collecting waste before it reached the river and carry it eastward away from the city. These new sewers would rely on gravity and pumping stations to move waste towards treatment sites far downstream. Construction began almost immediately and continued for many years. The work was grueling, requiring thousands of laborers to dig deep trenches beneath the city's teeming streets. Entire neighborhoods were disrupted and enormous sums of money were spent, but slowly the new system took shape. Bazalgette designed his sewers with a level of foresight rarely seen in public works. Anticipating the continued growth of the city, he built the pipes far wider than seemed necessary at the time. This decision would prove crucial in the decades to come. He also designed grand embankments along the river, incorporating sewer lines within their walls and reshaping the bank of the Thames. These embankments not only concealed the new infrastructure, but beautified the city. By the 1870s, the bulk of the sewer system was complete. Waste was no longer discharged into the Thames within the city. It was carried far downstream, greatly reducing the presence of disease and odor. The river, while not entirely clean, began to recover. The transformation was nothing short of revolutionary. Londoners could once again walk by the river without retching. The water, though still murky, no longer festered with the same toxic stew of waste and decay. Most significantly, cholera cholera outbreaks stopped entirely. Though the connection between water and disease would not be fully accepted until later, the evidence was plain to see. The Great Stink became more than just a grim anecdote. It was a lesson written in the air, a warning about the dangers of neglecting public health and infrastructure. The legacy of the crisis extended far beyond London. Cities across Europe and the Americas studied Bazalgette's work and modeled their own systems after his. The idea that clean water and proper waste removal were essential to health became a foundational principle of urban planning. Bazalgette himself was celebrated as a hero, though he remained a humble man, insisting that he had simply done his duty. He continued to work on other projects until the end of his life, always guided by the belief that good engineering could serve for public good. Beneath the elegant streets and stately boulevards of 19th century Paris lay a hidden world where the laboring poor toiled in darkness, largely unseen and uncelebrated. These were the men and women who worked in the sewers, catacombs, and underground tunnels of the city, an entire class of laborers who made possible the modern cleanliness and grandeur above ground by enduring the filth and damp below, by enduring the filth and the damp below. While Paris flourished above ground with light, luxury, and beauty, its underground was a world of shadows, stench, and hard labor. It was here, in cramped spaces carved through limestone and clay, that the forgotten population lived out their days in service to a city that barely acknowledged them. The Paris of the 19th century, like London, was undergoing rapid expansion. Baron Haussmann's renovation of the city brought about sweeping change, new roads, buildings, and boulevards, but also required a complete overhaul of the subterranean infrastructure. The sewers of Paris, long neglected and insufficient, needed to be expanded to accommodate the growing demand of modern urban life. With this need came the demand for laborers willing to work in the bowels of the earth. The job was not one for the faint of heart. Sewer workers, known in French as "égoutiers", descended into the underworld through stone shafts and ladders. Armed with lanterns, thick boots, and iron scrapers, they navigated narrow tunnels filled with flowing waste, clotted refuse, and choking gases of decay. It was physically demanding and profoundly dangerous. Many suffered injuries or illness from the toxic air. Some never returned. Yet the work was essential. Without these workers, the elegant Paris above would have collapsed into squalor, would have collapsed into squalor. The people who took on these roles were not well paid, nor were they highly regarded by society. Most came from the poorest neighborhoods of Paris, from families long accustomed to hard labor. Some were born into the work, sons following fathers into the tunnels, inheriting not only the profession but the knowledge of how to survive below. They learned to navigate the maze of corridors, to read the trickle of wastewater, and detect blockages by smell or sound. It was a knowledge passed down in whispers, tested by time and danger. Others came to the work through desperation, immigration or immigrants, and unemployed and ex-convict. These often found their way into the underground workforce when no other doors were open. These workers formed tight bonds, relying on each other for safety. The darkness required trust, and the constant risk of cave-ins, collapses, or floods bound them in a silent fraternity of survival. The catacombs of Paris, once ancient quarries, were another part of this subterranean world. These passages, stretched for miles beneath the city, were later used to house the remains of over 6 million dead after the overcrowded cemeteries above began to poison the water supply. During the reburials, teams of laborers worked night and day exhuming corpses, transporting bones, and stacking skulls in grim patterns deep underground. These men, often working by candlelight, had to endure the overwhelming stench of decay, the risk of collapse, and the psychological toll of handling the dead in such vast quantities. Many were clothed no, many wore cloths soaked in vinegar over their faces, but even this was no protection against disease. And yet they persisted, driven by necessity, by hunger, or by the steady, if meager, pay the city provided. The workers were not alone in the underworld. During certain periods, particularly after the upheaval of revolution, others came to the tunnels for reasons beyond labor. Criminals used the darkness to hide stolen goods or escape capture. Rebels gathered secretly, using the maze as a place of conspiracy. Even a few artists and mystics descended into the earth, seeking silence, madness, or inspiration in the company of bones and dripping stone. But it was the sewer workers, the laborers, who knew the underground best, who kept its channels flowing and its chambers from collapsing. Their work allowed the streets above to shine, the fountains to run, and the air to remain clean. Despite their contributions, these workers remained marginalized. The public rarely saw them, and when they did, it was often with disdain or superstition. The idea of the underworld carried with it a cultural stigma, and those who lived or worked in it were viewed as somehow unclean. Yet in time, curiosity became the tunnel. No, Yet in time, curiosity about the tunnels grew. In the later part of the century, guided tours of the Paris sewers began to be offered to the public. a strange fusion of tourism and education. Visitors marveled at the complexity of the system and at the men who maintained it. But for the workers themselves, it remained a world of hardship, danger, and anonymity. What is often forgotten is that these people were not just laborers, they were survivors. They carved a life out of darkness, built communities in the gloom, and protected a city that turned its back on them. They passed down songs, jokes, and traditions known only to those who walked the tunnels. They found moments of humanity in a world of decay. Some brought flowers to the underground shrines, little altars built into the walls for protection or remembrance. Some painted names on the stone, leaving behind a trace of their existence, and some disappeared entirely, lost to a cave-in or a sudden flood, their story swallowed by the silence below. In the modern era, much of this history is forgotten. The tunnels still exist, some now reinforced and fitted with modern systems, but the workers who once inhabited them are long gone. Their legacy, however, remains beneath the feet of every Parisian. They were the shadow people of the Golden City, the silent labor behind the beauty. Without them, the streets above would have drowned in their own waste, the light would have dimmed, and their air would have turned to poison. The people who lived and worked under Paris in the 19th century were the unsung guardians of a city that loved the light but depended utterly on the dark. Their world was one of filth and fatigue, yet also of quiet resilience. They taught us that even in the foulest depths, humanity endures, not in the grandeur or fame, but in toil, persistence, and the shared duty to keep the world above running. They were the unseen keepers of Paris, and their story is etched not in monuments, but in the brick and mortar of its hidden veins. So yeah, there we go. That is today's episode of The Cut, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I was really having a little bit I was having some issues last week, so I wasn't able to really pull together very much when it came to weird science. But I do have that up and running. I'll have extra um, readings that will be available tomorrow, so expect it to be quite a bit longer. Uh, Last week I could only do a 30-minute stream, which I apologize for. But this week I'll make up for it. It'll be at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, just to compensate for the amount of time that I put in last week. Um, if you guys like this, do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, make comments. I'd love to hear from you. If nothing more, just to say hi. You guys can catch me on Rumble, YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Kick, and I don't know. There might be other places that I don't quite remember off the top of my head, but those are the major ones. On Rumble, I am at the Wonderful World of Weirdness, just like I am on YouTube, the Wonderful World of Weirdness. This also will be on my other channel, which is called Strange Stories. That was the channel that I had before I got involved with the wonderful world of weirdness. I usually put this video on there after I'm done live streaming it, so you can catch it again on there. On Twitch, you can find me at Infamous 1969, and on and uh, D Live and Kick, I believe it is Roger underscore Hanson that you can find me at. So, um, yeah, if you guys are on those channels and you want to check me out, feel free to stop by and check those channels out. Um, with that being said, I hope you guys have a good day, evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is in the morning. And like I said, I will get in touch with Mr. Robot and find out if he wants to come on, and the invitation for him is still open. So hopefully we can get him to come in and talk to us about what he's found out when it comes to the naming of America. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. And again, thank you guys for watching. I will talk to you later.